My name is Dr. Bradshaw, and this film is intended for RAD 2612 students. We are studying congenital anomalies. This tape is about cervical ribs. And cervical ribs is a separate piece of bone that articulates with the transverse process of a cervical vertebra. Remember that the TP of the cervical vertebra always point down, and it is present in about 0.5% of the population, so it's very common. It needs to be differentiated from, do you have a cervical rib or do you have an elongated TP? And the difference between the two is that an elongated TP does not have a joint space, whereas a cervical rib does have a joint space. It also should be differentiated between an underdeveloped thoracic rib, called a rudimentary thoracic rib, or a cervical rib, and for the rudimentary thoracic, TP points up, and for cervical, TP points down. Looking at the first film, you have here TP points up, so this segment would be T1, so this one would be the cervical rib, and there is a joint space right here. On this side there is a joint space, but it does not go all the way through, it stops right there, and so that's why this side would be an elongated transverse process. Looking at the next film, we have here, this one is T1, and so we are looking at this right here. There is a joint space right there, and so that is a cervical rib. On the next film, oh, by the way, we do have a spina bifida on this film as well. On the next film, this one has the transverse process of T1, and you see how the length of this is longer than the TP of T1. And so this is, and I look for a joint space and I do not see one, this would be bilateral elongated transverse processes. On this film, TP of T1 points up. This is a cervical rib right here, and it also has a spina bifida right there. Then on the last film, I have TP points up right here. This is T1. There is a joint space right there. Comes down to right there and ends. And so there is the cervical rib. I've seen it really all three ways, that it just floats, does not articulate with anything. I've seen it articulate with the first thoracic rib, and I've also seen it go under the clavicle and articulate with the manubrium portion of the sternum. This concludes the tape on cervical ribs.